Hi guys, it's Stacy. I'm back with another video. I wanted to thank all my new subscribers, and if you're coming back to see me, thank you. I have a message that I want to talk about, and as all of them when I'm sitting down and it's just me talking to you, they're spiritually guided. So I have some coming through, and I think this is very important, and I think that this could help a lot of people out there understand things a little bit differently. So we're going to get started. And as always, I have a definition. So, so we are going to talk about the flight or fight response. Okay. It's also called hyperarousal or the acute stress response. It's a psychological reaction that occurs in response to a perceived harmful event, attack, or threat to your own survival. Okay. So, with that being said, let's break this down a little bit more. Okay. So, fight or flight response. We've probably all have dealt with that at some point in our life, whether it be just in little things that we lost a job and we had to decide to fight to get our life back after losing that job and get another job, or fight or flight, and get depressed or decide to go in for a little while that you need a break or however you do your fight or flight. There's many ways that you can go through this in your life, whether it's a car accident that in that split second you could not fight your way out of it and you couldn't flight, you couldn't jump out of that reality. It was what it was. So your emotions don't know where to go. It doesn't know which direction it's supposed to do. Is it supposed to fight for you or is it supposed to flight for you? um, and that can cause issues in people when that happens. And or you have, say you go through a divorce and you're going through a divorce and your life's completely changing. Okay, friends are being divided, things are happening, you don't truly know where your life is heading and what direction that is going to be. So you're fighting for a new beginning, you're fighting for the new you're fighting to survival mode. Correct? So, or you can go through a divorce and you can decide that you are going to flight response it. You're going to numb the emotions. You're going to use a substance to get you through those emotions. And you're just going to live the day in the past or not being there at all because you're just out of flight. You're just going with it, not really fighting for it to change. And those are responses to, things that could happen on a normal, divorces happen all the time. Car accidents can happen all the time. And these are our responses. And there's a million other, things that are just normal reactions to fight or flight. So then we get to where we're talking about the kind of fight or flight that happens in childhood victims of sexual abuse or rape victims or war victims, because for a long time they didn't recognize PTSD as a part that can happen with any outside of the war scenario that they were given to the victims of PTSD when they came back from war. And then they figured out that it was the same thing for children of sexual child abuse. Well, why would that be? Why would you think? Okay, so you're a young child, you're being either emotionally, mentally, or physically sexually abused as a child. So you can't fight that situation. You're not old enough to fight against the people who are hurting you. You're depending on them for survival. Correct? So How do you fight that? You're too small. Okay, what about flight? What about flight? Could I have walked out of the house at 6 years old and took care of myself, fed myself? There's no flight. You can't fight and you can't escape it. So you learn how to put it, it becomes, when it happens over and over and over again, and you anticipate it happening, and you know it's going to happen in this very survival, basic, everyday life giving survival becomes threatened. And the way that you can deal with that is to separate what's going on physically and put it in little boxes in your head, because you're not old enough to understand why you can't have any control whatsoever. You know, you can't fight it, you can't fight it, you just have to exist into it. And as a child, you are not meant to know how to do that. And in those cases, a fight or flight can cause post-traumatic stress disorder. And then in severe cases, chronic post-traumatic stress disorder. And the same thing happens when you, in some cases, when people lose loved ones, it becomes PTSD or chronic PTSD when something happens to you on a level that affects your soul. So who you are on a core level has been affected by this situation, and you can't fight it. You can't fight that they're gone. And you can't flight it forever, because you have to face the emotions. So you can develop it's not only a sadness of a loss, but a severe case of post-traumatic stress disorder, because your emotions don't know where to go. There's nothing to fight, and you can only flight and stay out of your emotions for so long before they all come back in, because you have to learn to face them. So those are some examples on how everyday life can affect your flight or fight response, and how some traumatic events that affect your soul, like child abuse, sexual child abuse, and death. And those are usually the things that change people the most. And in those moments, you not only learn who you are, but you have to learn how to find yourself again, because you've been defined. And being defined as a person, because the things that change our souls, those are the things that define us. The situation, how we got out of them, how we survived them, how we treated others while we were going through them. All of that matters. And that is not easy. So when a traumatic event happens and you're an adult, or anywhere to where your memory can put what happened in a box for what it was and understand it, regardless of how bad that hurt, you have the option to fight or flight it. And how you deal with it is how you treat others and how you love yourself, and it can domino effect. When you are not capable on a soul level to realizing what it is, and you're constantly in between fight and flight. Should I say, should I go? Should I say, should I go? Am I going to get hurt? Everything is surviving. It's going to hurt me physically because that is my reality. When you're a child of sexual abuse, that's your reality. Someone is hurting you on a soul level, and you're constantly trying to not know you can't do anything. You're just stuck. So that causes us to detach, and it causes to have post-traumatic stress disorder or chronic post-traumatic stress disorder, depending on how bad or how you psychologically internally took care of it. The same thing when your whole life changes so fast by a loss of something, and it changes you on a core level, like it's a part of you that you can never have back again. Just like a child, when they've been abused, a part of their soul dies. And usually through life, when you have the ones that you have control over, and you can decide if you're going to fight or flight it, and the outcome depends on what you do with that, and you're old enough to live with it. That's called surviving. We do that as human beings all the time, and it doesn't affect you in the fact that you're going to have post-traumatic stress from it. But in the latter, you can develop post-traumatic stress disorder. So everything, even after the abuse is over, your response to everything around you, your environment, because you lived in fight or flight for so long, your body no longer knows how to turn it on or off. So you stay in fight and flight, somewhere in between, waiting for an action to happen to you so your reaction can figure out what it's going to do. And since it was never one way or the other, you were stuck until you learned that you can pick which way you want to go with it. Fight for yourself, fight against the injustice once you get old enough to understand it, or flight and take yourself out of the situation in a healthy way and cope with it on an emotional level without anything clouding that judgment. You kind of just stay right there somewhere in between. No, sissy. So sorry about that. But it's, you stay somewhere in the middle, and that's the void. That's where you're not really knowing what to do. Your anxiety is everywhere. You have no control over your emotions. So society in a whole, whether it's the disappointments that we do to ourselves, or we stay in situations that put us in fight or flight, or it's something that's out of our control, like childhood abuse and rape and a death of a loved one, where it affects your soul of who you are. No matter which type it is, having chronic post-traumatic stress or PTSD disorder changes the way we have to live our lives. And you have to make a conscious decision to heal your soul every day. And some days, you're not going to want to do nothing. Fighting against anything can be healthy, or it can be dangerous. You have to choose what's worth fighting. You have to choose when it's okay to flight, to just let it go by, to just know that it is what it is. It is what it is. That's all it is. But the fight or flight response and how it occurs in our body is a protective mechanism that God has gave us, because children of sexual abuse, of any kind of abuse, they don't they're not capable of understanding their surroundings, especially when you're a light worker, because everything is supposed to be love, right? If we learn in all situations how to work with our fight and flight and know when it's time to run, when it's our time to go, when we're past our expiration date with a person, place, or thing, or if it's something we spend the rest of our life learning how to balance. I think learning about fight or flight, regardless if you have post traumatic stress disorder, just knowing that that is usually a response to everything, and anxiety, depression, fear, all comes from those things and how we react to the actions of others, will help us all. We all have something to share, and we all have a story. And it is definitely, I have had chronic post traumatic stress disorder my whole life. When I tell people that, which isn't often, I don't, only people who are really close to me, and now I guess whoever watches my YouTube, but I'm a survivor. I survived and am logically okay to say that I can balance the fight or flight now. Every little sound don't make me jump. I don't wake up screaming in the middle of the night. I am not in deep depression. I haven't kept things blocked from my own mind, because I did that for almost 40 years. I blocked the truth from my own mind because I was in fight or flight. Because I knew once that door was open, once I knew the whole truth, I had to make a concrete decision in my life, and it would change forever. My soul would be changed again forever. And I had to choose which road to go down. And I found during that road, there were times I had to fight. I had to fight for me. I had to fight for my children. I had to fight for peace. And along the way, I had to fight. I had to walk away. I had to know when it was time to just walk away and leave it alone, that it wasn't good for me. But I had to stay conscious in those moments. I had to stay real with myself, honest with myself, and clear minded. Because if you try to fight something without being clear minded, you're usually fighting for the wrong things. And if you try to flight from things just because you don't want to feel the emotion, just because you don't want to deal with it, it'll always come back until you deal with it. So it's a balance always. It's always a balance, guys. I really felt like I wanted to put this video out there just to help the collective, because We all go through moments of fight or flight. What are you going to do when someone cuts you off? Are you going to just fight them? Or are you just going to let it go? Maybe they're having a rougher day than you are. When you lose your job and things change, are you going to fight and get another one and keep doing you? Or are you going to fight all the emotions, blame it on others, project all your pain on other people until you're ready to hit bottom to realize that, you know what? You need a job anyway. So this response can help all of us. And to my subscribers or viewers that watch this that do have PTSD or chronic post-traumatic stress disorder, I know the climb, the good, the bad, the indifference, the moments you don't know if you're going to make it. I've been through it, all the way through it, to where my body started breaking down if I didn't learn to fight for me. I will say this, going up that mountain was the hardest thing I ever had to do. And truthfully, there are moments I do not know how I did it. I do not know. I don't know. But I was never walking alone, I guess. I found me at the top of that mountain. And I have just started letting the world see me. So I appreciate you all. I love you all so much. And I hope you have a great day.